Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumphs for the collective's healing and empowerment. I am your host, Priscilla Hanley. My guest today is Sarah Itkin. Sarah combines her gifts as a psychic medium, angel channel, and training as a mental health therapist to provide psychic development programs, coaching, and holistic, integrated, intuitive readings. Sarah guides her clients in upleveling their spiritual connection by teaching her unique intuitive development course and providing professional one-on-one development training. She helps people remove blocks to achieving their goals, cope with challenging life experiences, and break negative beliefs and behavioral patterning. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Sarah on right now. Hi, Sarah.
Hi,
Hi, welcome to my podcast.
thank you for having me.
And thank you for taking time to join us here today. So, Sarah, I am very interested to know more about your journey, specifically how you transition from being a mental health therapist and then to someone who's providing intuitive readings and psychic development courses. So I'm kind of curious to know like what exactly transpired in your life to help you to make that shift. And the and the reason why I say that is because from my perspective, I think a lot of people are kind of leaving the corporate world right now and kind of venturing out to their own businesses. And so I feel like our conversation today could be potentially very helpful to this group of people because you have made the transition yourself from corporate to your own business. So, yeah, I open the floor to you now, Sarah, and I invite you to share your personal journey with our audience.
Thank you so much. So, I feel like my story is so long, so I definitely have to work on condensing it. But I actually didn't know that I was psychic until I was in college. So, I had a dream that one of my friends had passed away, and the dream was very, very vivid and detailed. And so much so that I called her the next day to see if she was still alive. And she was, but a year and a half later, she did tragically pass away, and everything that happened in my dream came true in her passing. So I knew that I was psychic, and ironically, she was the one who taught me about angels and mediums and psychics as well. So she opened me up to that world. And I just was told myself, well, so what? I'm psychic. I can see that this, was a warning to help me, but what am I going to do about this? Like nothing. What's the point? So I went on with my life and I continued to have some unsettling dreams that came true. Like again, I ignored them. And when I was a therapist, I started to have more intense dreams. And in one particular dream I had was about a client of mine. She was in a war and I didn't know what happened to her. She didn't tell me what happened to her. And a few days before I saw her, I had a dream that I was suffering from atrocities, a victim of atrocities in a war. And they were very, very detailed. And so then when she ended up telling me that what happened to her, it was everything that happened to me. So meanwhile, a year prior, I met a psychic development teacher, and she happened to be a teacher for my friend who passed away for her sister. And I was like, well, what's the point in working with her? I mean, I know I'm psychic. I'd like to work with her, but why invest in it? What's the point? I'm not going to become a psychic, reader. It's kind of funny when I think about it. So anyway, I knew at that point that this dream was not appropriate for me to have. It was very upsetting. And it was time for me to work with that teacher just to hone my gifts. I had no idea what was going to transpire. So when I started working with my teacher, I learned how to develop my psychic abilities. I learned how to communicate with angels. I learned how to be a medium to connect with deceased loved ones. And then I realized that I can combine my experience as a mental health therapist with all my other abilities to provide intuitive coaching in addition to giving readings. And that felt like my passion. And I ended up leaving my job as a therapist, which was very scary. And just to pursue. I felt like I had no other choice but to pursue this dream that I had. And then moving on, fast forwarding, as my career continued as an intuitive coach, I was seeing that all these people were stepping into their intuitive abilities. And particularly before COVID hit, I had this vision that the whole world was going to stop and that very many people were going to recognize that they were intuitive. And so then I became inspired to create my course, my Introduction to Intuitive Development course, and in which I teach people how to develop their intuitive abilities, and anyone can do it, really. So that's basically how I got here.
Nice. So let me ask you this. How long did it take you to develop your intuitive abilities and the mediumship and talking with angels? Like, was that difficult to harness that kind of gift?
Mhm. Actually, no, I everything developed immediately. I did work with my teacher for a year, but I was able to, everything that we worked on was just like second nature to me. And I think that's why, for example, in my course, it's 10 weeks and people can accomplish so much in 10 weeks. Why? Because we already have the intuition inside us. It's already there. It's just about nurturing it, nurturing that muscle. And so it becomes second nature.
Right. And so is there a difference between a psychic and an intuitive? I mean, there's
Mhm.
interchange of two words there, but do they mean the same thing or is there a slight difference?
Well, to me, first of all, intuitive is just a fancy word for psychic. But the second thing for me is because I'm psychic, but I also connect to angels and I also connect to the deceased. It feels like it's a like broader umbrella term for me.
Okay, understood. Let's talk a little bit more about your abilities. This is so fascinating to me. How was the communication, your first communication with the angels? How did that turn out for you?
Well, I started to see angels as sparks of light, and I didn't, I had a sense that they were celestial beings, but then I quickly just ignored that because I told myself I wasn't special enough to see it. And so, about 10 years later, after I had those little sparks of light and I was working with my teacher, I saw them again, but I was at work. And this time I knew that they were angels, but I wanted them to prove it to me. So I was listening to the Pandora station on the classical station, Pandora, and I asked them to play a particular song. I was like, if your angels play this particular song next, and they did.
Wow.
And so then I said, if you're really angels, because I was just so skeptical, then play my favorite song on the radio when I'm driving home from work. And I thought of this particular song. So I'm driving home. I'm like, oh God, I have to turn the radio on. I almost forgot. How am I, like I need to know that they're going to play my favorite song. So I turned the radio on and there was my favorite song, but it was a special live version.
So what was the
And
favorite song?
what is that? Stay by Sam Smith. Or
Oh
no, Stay
yeah.
With Me. It's either Stay With Me or
Yes.
Stay.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
I love that song. Yeah.
Hmm.
So then how did that progress from you hearing that song and then how did you develop your relationship with the angels?
So they started to show me lots of signs, and that's something that I teach people is how to recognize angel signs because that's one way in which they communicate to us. And it's just easy to, not notice them. And then I learned how to do channeling through automatic handwriting, which is where you basically get yourself in a meditative state and then start to free write and I just, was trusting that I was connecting to the angels. And eventually I didn't need to do that anymore. But what would happen is the angels would share information with me about other people that ended up being true. So it's like that was like validation. And I could also see the angels on my paper when I was doing the channeling as well. So it just kind of happened. And the more signs that I was receiving, the more validation I got, the more I trusted. And then finally I just was like, yeah, I'm just channeling the angels and I accept it fully.
Oh, nice. So when you talked about signs, I know the angels give us very subtle signs. And it's pretty much all of us will probably miss the sign because it's so subtle. Can you give it like an example of how they gave you signs and how did you recognize that this sign came from the angels?
Hmm. So the angels, I hear them talk to me in my mental voice. And I was sitting by, here's one example that I just couldn't ignore. So I was sitting by a creek and I heard, look down, you will find a heart-shaped rock. And I looked down and I found a heart-shaped rock.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I said, oh yeah, like, okay, this isn't defined enough. Like I could say this isn't a heart-shaped rock. And then they said, look down again. And I looked down again and I had found a heart-shaped rock. So another sign that I couldn't ignore was angel numbers, like repetitive number patterns that would show up to me all the time. And I just, it seemed like a coincidence was really a synchronicity. And I would look, at a license plate and there would be that number. And I'd park in front of a house that would have that number and so on. And so I couldn't really ignore that. And then this is my coolest story. So I was in my bedroom and I heard a clicking sound coming from my ceiling, and a white feather came down. And this was after I learned about angel feathers. A big white feather fell down from my ceiling, right, and landed right in front of me. And because of the clicking sound and because it came from my ceiling, I couldn't say, "Oh, that was like from my down comforter," or "That was from my down jacket." So that's just another clear sign that I got that made me just feel so much more confident.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Were you nervous when like a random feather just came down from the ceiling?
No, I thought it was amazing. I felt actually really supported
Oh,
and
that's
really, I mean, I would have been nervous if it was like a dead animal that came from my ceiling
yeah,
or
right.
something scary, but it was just so affirming.
Yeah, and you talked about repetitive numbers. It's interesting
Hmm.
because I see a lot of repetitive numbers. Specifically, I see a lot of like 1111.
Yep.
Sometimes when I get up in the morning, it's like 3:33 or 2:22. What are they trying
Yep.
to tell us with these numbers?
Well, the overall message is that you're okay. You're being encouraged to talk to your angels and learn how to receive messages from your angels. And then each number has a particular meaning. And so I actually use this resource called Joanne Sacred Scribes. It's a blog and you can look up the meaning to each number. But 1111 is like the gateway number, and it's showing that positive things are, going to happen. And then 333 is the number for Jesus, which is not in a religious sense, in the sense that he was this divine being that could teach humanity to connect with him. And then 222 is like everything's going to be okay. Remember to think positively, so on and so forth. They all have different meanings, but at the same time, like I said, the same overarching theme.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, so now when I see these numbers, I'll kind of like think about what you said. Makes
Oh,
sense.
good.
So, what profound message have you received from the angels like recently? Have you had any profound messages or teachings from them?
Yeah, I would say one profound message was that you have a dream for a reason. So, for example, and this often goes along with career. So, I had a dream that I wanted to pursue, intuitive counseling. This was my dream. This was because a dream, like having this particular dream guides you to your purpose. And our purposes are meant to be fulfilled at this point in time as our planet is evolving spiritually, as humans, we're evolving spiritually. And so what I gleaned from that was that because I'm pursuing this dream, I will continue to be successful. And when clients are telling me, like one client was dreaming about being staging like homes that were going to be sold, and I just felt like she had this dream for a reason too. It's a random thing. It's not just our egos that are telling us, "Oh, this is the best thing to do." It's like there's something deep within, and so we have that because we are meant to put out different aspects of our own creativity. So then, therefore, I feel like the dream is meant to be fulfilled.
Right. There's a lot of chaos in the external world right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people are in anxiety, in fear, in a resentment. So I guess my question is, what advice do you or the angels have for people who are in that space, in a fearful space or in anger, and they have no idea how to trust themselves or trust the universe? It's a scary thing to trust themselves or the universe. What would you say to help this group of people?
So I would say that again, we are evolving spiritually. There are more people stepping into their healing paths than ever before. There, just like there's more, like we were saying, there's more people who are stepping into their intuitive abilities than ever before. And this is real. So if you can unplug, like the angels told me, because I was really getting sucked into the fear of the collective consciousness with everything going on. And they showed me a plug, and it was like I was unplugging from that collective consciousness and then plugging into all the beautiful positive things that are happening as a collective, which is the spiritual evolution. And I would say turning off the news and not listening to the news is a privilege. If that's something that, it's important to recognize that. But I would suggest doing that because if you're feeling very overwhelmed, it's not helpful to hear what's happening on the news because they usually reflect a lot of negativity. However, it's important to stay informed so you know how to vote, you know how to be an activist, because part of the spiritual path is being practical and physical and helping people who are suffering. So for me, social justice is important. However, I figure out a way, I'm like almost like a diet to receive that information without being overwhelmed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's just one way.
Yeah, for me, I have unplugged too. I'll just share a little bit about my journey. So last year, I took a 10-month channeling program by a well-known channeler, and it was a very intense program. I think I was being asked to unplug so that I can anchor in the higher frequencies. And so, yeah, it's interesting that you say that to unplug from the news because I
Mhm.
do agree with what you're saying that the news is highly negative and it can affect our psyche if you keep watching negativity all day, every day.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. It can. And so again, it's about how do you receive important information that you need in order to inform you how to be a citizen that is taking practical steps to making the world a better place without inundating yourself with all this information that is, I feel like it's on overdrive.
right. And so, how do you keep that balance, like not watching the news, but then staying informed at the same time? What do you do for your practice?
Well, I know like I don't take all the information from social media, but like I see what, things that you find out what big world events are happening, via social media. And then I read articles that are non-biased. Like I would recommend like NPR is or New York Times. I read articles about it. And just reading it is different than seeing and visualizing and witnessing all this suffering like firsthand. And then I determine who I'm going to vote for based on how I would love to see people being taken care of on this planet. Because I do think voting is very important. In the spiritual world, a lot of people discourage taking action like that because they think it's part of contributing to like a societal divide. But it's really important to choose leaders that will help us get closer to this spiritual evolution by I do believe that they can create healing on this planet. So
Yeah.
that's basically it.
So I want to move on to your business now. So you talked about your intuitive development program and your intuitive readings.
Hmm.
Please elaborate more for us what services and programs you offer to the collective at this time.
Okay. So I have a three-pronged, I guess I would say, business offerings. So the intuitive readings are basically people come to me seeking clarity and guidance. And so what I do is I ask them if, what their intention is for the reading and if they want to connect to a deceased loved one. And then I use my psychic abilities to be able to see into their lives what I need to see in order to provide healing answers. And then I listen to the angels throughout because they're also going to provide healing guidance to answer questions and or just to provide, guidance in general. And then to connect to the deceased loved one, what I do is I connect to their energy, and then I gather specific details about that person, that spirit. And then once I am satisfied that I have those specific details correctly and I'm connecting to that correct spirit, then I relay messages just like there's talking to me, and I just relay them to my client, just super healing. With the intuitive coaching practice, we come up with goals to break negative belief patterns. A lot of times, I help people who are really just going through, really struggling, maybe with a particular life event, or they're feeling disconnected from their purpose, they're struggling with emotional challenges. And so I remember, the different skills that I used as a therapist that I incorporate into the coaching. But again, I use the same thing as I did giving readings where in each session, I intuit what's helpful and healing, and then help my clients. We come up with practical ways of healing or healing energetically or just healing through the messages. And then by the end of it, they are totally transformed. That's been amazing to watch.
Nice.
With my classes, I train beginners all the way up to people who are wanting to become professional psychics. So with the beginning programs, it's my course. So basically what happens is we learn how to ground, clear, and protect our energy, how to remove blocks to our intuition. I use psychic development exercises so that the students are eventually able to give basic mini readings. And we do different energy healings to clear out, to to boost energetic centers in our body called the chakras. And they learn how to use their intuition just like flipping a switch. So they're not being overwhelmed, and they're not connecting to any energies they don't want to connect to. So they learn how to channel angels, guides, and then we do readings where they practice on each other. And that is, very, very transformative and lovely. And then when people want to work with me on a professional level, I work with them individually.
Okay, nice. And so for your classes, do the angels come through with any messages for the students or tips or
Hmm.
something?
Yes, because I remember an example of one of my students was struggling to connect. And I was like, oh, you need to try this. They told me that there was something else that she needed to try. So it was that simple. And so oftentimes I'll be sharing what I had planned to teach, and then I'll start getting messages, and that will add more nuance and more information to the lessons.
So when you channel the angels and then when you bring through a departed loved one, how is the quality of the energy for you? How do you, I guess, differentiate or discern like which is which? Is there a difference in the quality of the energy?
So the difference is that there's a sense that the angels are never human. So they're these non-human energies that I connect to as a collective consciousness. And then sometimes I work with archangels who are the angels in charge, and I work with individually, and they each have healing powers in particular. And then it just feels more human. It feels like a deceased loved one. I feel like I'm connecting to a human, if that makes sense. So a human that's just not in physical form. That's the
So
big difference. Hopefully
I
that makes sense.
I guess what you're trying to say is like maybe the energy feels more dense when it's like a departed loved one versus a collective consciousness. They're pretty high vibration. And so maybe they feel, I don't know, I'm just assuming maybe they feel a lot lighter when they come through. Is that
Yeah,
it?
the angels feel lighter, but the deceased loved ones that I connect to have crossed over. And when that happens, they lose their egos. So they're still, it's lighter. But I get, yeah, I never really thought about this. So this is really helpful for me to like figure it out. So they can still be light, but it's just they're there to guide in a very specific way. They're there to provide guidance because my client is someone that they loved and they know and that they provide, healing messages in regards to their relationships. And so yeah, again, I guess it's hard to describe the difference. Like one feels, yeah, pure, like otherworldly, and the other one feels more friendly
Nice.
and closer to this world.
Okay, understood. The departed loved ones, what are they saying about the other side? So when they
Mhm.
transition, where do they go? And what's their process like when they transition? Have they shared anything like that?
Yeah, so the process when they transition is very peaceful, and there's a few exceptions when people die in ways that aren't in their highest and best good. But they always show me that they're in this beautiful place. And so like I remember, one man, his favorite thing to do was golf. So he's standing there with the golf club smiling, and then people who fish or people who danced, their favorite thing, and they'll show me they're doing that thing, which to me is a metaphor for like they're in ecstasy, they're in just joy and love consciousness. And then like it's kind of like where they particularly they are seems a little bit like a mystery, like it's supposed to be a mystery because there's no, I don't see anybody being punished. I don't see like hell. I don't believe in hell. And then it's like everyone has their own heaven. So for people who are religious, I see them with, if they're Catholic, I see them with the Virgin Mary. I see them with Jesus if they're, really believe in Jesus. For example, people, when people all different religions, they'll show me their specific like objects that are like connected to their religion. So then there's like, actually it was a beautiful and then experience. My dad was passing away and he kept going to the other world, to the other side. And he said he described it as lights, of seeing these bright lights, and that was a beautiful place. And that's kind of like what I see when I give readings. I see people and all these beautiful lights, which to me are the angels, and just these warm colors. And yeah, so it's not like a specific detailed thing, but where they are is beautiful. There's no sadness, there's no anger. It's
Yeah,
just beautiful.
I bet. You really have a beautiful gift here. I mean, to tap into this kind of wisdom and information because I don't get that.
Not yet.
I don't know. We'll see. So, okay. So what is like some trends that you're noticing in the people that you work with? Be it troubling trends, encouraging trends, or any trends that the collective should know about at this point in time?
Mhm. One trend is feeling disconnected from their purpose, like people going through the motions, feeling stuck, knowing that there's more out there, but they don't quite know how to get to it, or there's a lot of fear and lack of trust in their path. There's a trend of people evolving and transforming, and maybe the life situation, maybe relationships aren't moving along that transformation. But like I was saying before, there's a lot of people who are stepping into their intuitive gifts on the positive side and are figuring out ways to bring that into their lives. And then people recognizing their dreams and then wanting to take that leap of faith. A lot of people come because they're healing from grief when they lose a loved one. And sometimes people just feel really unclear about life. They're just like about decisions, making decisions, and like wanting help with making decisions. It's almost like we're so taught to ignore our intuition and to not trust ourselves, especially as women, really taught not to trust ourselves. And so I help provide clarity around that. But really it seems to be about helping people step into their highest potential.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. As you were talking, I had kind of like a download and it said that, this transformation that Earth is going through and humanity is going through is going to be messy for a while.
Yeah.
But that is required because I think we need to see the messiness and we need to see the things that are not working so that the collective can make changes, positive changes. What are your thoughts on
Hmm.
that?
100% accurate. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything that you said is just so true. There's messiness in the collective and there's messiness in our own lives. But the mess, at least the ones that we're experiencing ourselves that we can change, is here to teach us how to evolve, to teach us how to transform. Because without that discomfort, we wouldn't be pushed to change and grow.
Exactly. I think the human collective, we learn best through discomfort and through contrast. You need to go through
Hmm.
something that you don't prefer and to understand that, okay, this is something I don't prefer. Then it kind of leads you into a path to something that you do prefer. Do you know what I mean? Through the
Hmm.
contrast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So they can find me on Instagram, on my website. So um, it's www.sarahitkin.com, but I'm assuming you'll have that in the
Oh, yes,
notes because
absolutely. Yep.
because it's like people are always like, how do you spell Itkin? You can go to my website, book sessions, see when my next class is, talk to me about when you want to do my class if you want to. They can email me, call me, all that information is on my website. And then my Instagram is at Sarah Itkin Intuitive. And I post a lot of content on there and different information. I also have a mini course. It's a $17 online mini intuitive development course. And they can go to my website and Instagram to find that course. And yeah, that's about it.
Nice. So just for clarification, the $17 mini course is different from the one that you just talked about, right? The intuitive development
Yes.
class.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm. The $17 one is like a sampling and a wonderful taste and, and a way to experience developing your intuition in a little bite, in a small bite.
Okay, got it. So the class is how many weeks again?
Well, it's a 10-week online
Okay.
course on Zoom. And so people who have to miss a session, that it's all recorded, so they're able to still gain access to it.
I'll put everything in the show notes. And so you have a special gift for our audience today?
Yes, I'll channel a message if you'd like.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let me give you the question.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is the question for the collective. What is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
The word is rising, focusing on the energy of rising, the humanity that's rising. The people who are stepping into their paths and stepping into their light are growing in profound ways and will seek healing and guidance and will that will transform their lives and the lives of others and participating in the healing of the collective consciousness and of Mother Earth.
Thank you. So who was the being that came through?
I was channeling the angels as a collective.
Okay.
Yeah, so to me they're like all these little angels that are talking to me.
Nice. So when you hear them, is it like your voice or is it like somebody else's voice? How does that work for you?
It's in my mental voice, so it sounds like thoughts. But I know that
Ah,
they're not my own thoughts because I shut my own thoughts down during this process. But I was like, Sarah's mind is elsewhere. Sarah's taking a break from her own thoughts and mind when when I'm doing this.
That's such a interesting, important practice for the collective to learn how to do, to shut shut our mind down, right? For a little bit,
Hmm.
at least to just check in with ourselves. So
Hmm.
if you can, how do you do that? How do you shut your mind off and let the higher vibrational frequencies come through? Can you just give us a quick tip?
Yeah, so meditation and dropping into your body, learning how to drop into your body is really helpful. I offer these guided meditations in my mini course and my big course, but it's like you can find, meditations on YouTube that help you just more about dropping into your heart and dropping into your soul, and then you learn how to be able to train your mind through that by basically it's a shift of attention, it's a shift of focus, and then your mind goes into an empty state. I've been doing it for so long that it's just like turning a switch on and off. I don't have to meditate or anything.
Okay, so when you shift your focus
Hmm.
from the external, you just shift it to the internal, like maybe
Hmm.
focusing on your heartbeat or focusing on your breath.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing that I teach people is how to breathe, is just breathing, put your hand on your heart and breathe into your heart,
Okay.
because that's where your soul resides. And your soul has all the answers and is like also an extension of spirit. So when you're breathing into that area, you're automatically dropping into your body and your mind becomes blank.
Yeah. I'll try that. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah, so much for being here today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and your light with our audience today. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you. Thank you.
And for everybody who's watching and listening, thank you for your time. And until next time, bye for now.